Hi, I'm Matt Meadows from Games, and I'm going to talk you through my Star Wars Stolen Plans card game. Okay, to start the game, take the game deck, shuffle the cards together, deal 5 cards to each player, and then place the draw pile in easy reach of all the players. Decide who goes first, and then you're ready to play. Okay, the game turn goes like this. You either draw a card and add that card to your hand, and then your turn is over, or you play a card from your hand, or in some circumstances it may be a couple of cards which are played together. So that's how it works. I'll explain to you now how each of the cards works. Okay, the most important card is this one. This is the R2-D2 droid, which is carrying the Stolen Plans. This card cannot be discarded. So, for example, if you had 3 cards in your hand and an opponent made you discard 3 cards, you would have to discard all of the cards in your hand except this one. So therefore you'd only discard 2, and you would keep this one in your hand. You don't have to reveal it, but if questioned you can just say that you cannot discard this card, and that should give the other players an indication of which card you are holding. So how are you going to get hold of the R2-D2 card? Well, there's cards such as this, which is a steal card. Effectively, on your turn you play this card, the card is then discarded, and you can then at random take 1 card from any other player's hand. Generally we recommend that the player would fan out their cards, and then the other player will literally choose one and add it to their hand. So that's how the steal card works. There's a steal 2 card. When you play this card, you steal 2 cards from any other player. As well as stealing to get the R2 card, another tactic is to attack the other players to reduce the number of cards they have in the hand, therefore identifying if they do have the R2-D2 card. So the attack cards, such as these can be played on your turn. So, if I was going to play an attack, for example, I could play the Darth Vader attack on my turn. This card would go on the top of the discard pile, face up, and I would have to choose another player who I'm attacking. The attack value of each card is shown here. And what that means is that, in this instance, 8, that the player I choose to attack must discard 8 cards from their hand. They choose which cards to discard and put them on the discard deck. Then my turn is over. However, that player that I attack can, if they choose and if they're able to, play up to 2 defend cards from their hand. Defend cards have a value as shown here. And basically the value of 1 or 2 cards which the defender will play is reduced from the original attack score. So for instance, if Darth Vader attacked with an attack value of 8 and the target player played a defend of 6, the difference of 2 is the number of cards that the defender must then discard. Now if the defender had played 2 defend cards with a total value of 13, then the player who originally played the attack card, the Darth Vader attack card with a value of 8, must lose the difference between the defend total of 13 and their attack value of 8. So therefore that comes back on the attacker, who must then discard 5 cards in this case. And all of that was the attacker's turn. So the attacker's turn is then over and play passes to the next player. The next card I'll talk about is the Rebel Hero cards. Here's a couple, for example. Rebel Hero cards have 2 uses. One use is that each of the cards has a defend value at the bottom of the card. Therefore, you could use that card on its own or with another Rebel Hero for its defend value, or with a regular defend card. as one of your 2 cards that you're allowed to defend with on your turn. You have to choose, of course, if you do want to use it as the defend value, that the other way of using the card is no longer an option, as this card is then discarded. The other way of using Rebel Hero cards is that on your turn you play 2 of these together. It can be any 2 Rebel Hero cards together, and then that allows you to steal 2 cards. Now that can be 2 cards from any players. You could take 1 card from one player, 1 from another, or you could just take 2 cards from the same player. So as a recap, with the Rebel Heroes, you can play 2 Rebel Hero cards together to steal 2 cards from any players. That could be 1 card from one player, 1 from another if you chose, or you can use a Rebel Hero card for its defend value. Okay, one of the most important cards in the game is the Jedi card. This card is played in a slightly different way to the other cards. You play it on your turn, and you put this card face up on the table in front of you. It remains there for the rest of the game, and it allows you to play any other cards which have Jedi only written on them. There's a series of these Yoda cards with Jedi only on, and there's a defend, a powerful 11 defend with the Jedi only card. You can only play these if you have this Jedi card in front of you. The Jedi only cards have a variety of uses. This one, for instance, all players must simultaneously pass their cards to the player on their left. So some of these cards are quite powerful, but once again, you can only play Jedi only cards if you have the Jedi card in front of you. So that's how the game plays. The object of the game is when the deck has run out and the last card is drawn, the game immediately ends. At that point, the player with the R2-D2 card reveals this card to be declared the winner. So as you may have realised, it's relatively easy to come into this card, but it's a lot more difficult to keep hold of it. Now, when I designed the 2nd edition of this game, which is the cards that you're looking at today, I designed a series of optional bonus cards which can be included into the deck. You can include some of them, all of them, whatever you choose. The first one I'll tell you about is the decoy card. This card works a little bit like the R2-D2 card in that it stays in your hand and cannot be discarded. It can be stolen though. So if, for instance, you were asked to discard 3 cards and you had 2 other cards and the decoy card, you would discard both other cards, but you would keep the decoy card, therefore possibly convincing the other players that you have the R2-D2 card. If, for instance, you had the decoy and the R2-D2 card, you would only discard 1 and you would keep the 2 cards, and other players would therefore know that you have the R2-D2 card and that you have the decoy card. The search card. This card allows you to search through the discard deck, take any 2 cards of your choice and add them to your hand. The advantage card. This card is placed face up on the table in front of you. As long as this card is there in front of you, whenever you're drawing a card, you draw 2 cards instead of 1. The counter card is used to remove the advantage card if that's already been put into play by another player. So, for example, if player A had played the advantage card and was drawing 2 cards instead of 1 whenever drawing, then player B could come in and play the counter card. That's discarded and the advantage card is discarded. The discard all card. You must choose another player to discard all of their cards. If they have the R2-D2 and or the decoy, they must give them to you immediately. They will end up with no cards. If they have the R2 or the decoy, they go to you. All the other cards are discarded. The traitor card. If you play this card with the R2-D2 card and the Darth Vader attack card, you win the game. The game immediately ends regardless of how many cards are left in the deck. You betray the rebellion and the Empire wins. This year I'm actually celebrating the 10-year anniversary of designing this game. To mark the occasion, I've released a new set of cards which are available on Board Game Geek, I'll talk you through each of these cards now. Crush the Rebellion. This card is played alongside an attack card and effectively means that the target player cannot play any defend cards, Jedi only or otherwise. They cannot play any defend. So, for example, you were going to play an attack 9, the Emperor. You could play this card along with it, discard both cards, and your opponent must discard 9 cards and they cannot play any defense. The Steel bonus card. This card is played with the Steel card, the Bounty Hunter Steel card with a picture of Boba Fett on it. It's played with that card, and the target player must give you all of their cards. There's no other way to cancel this card, so therefore they must give you every card in their hand, including the R2 card or the decoy card. The Jedi Student of the Force card. This card effectively means that there can be 2 Jedi players in the game. Not only will there be one, there can be the Luke Skywalker Student of the Force card as well. It works in the same way. If you have this card, you play it face up in front of you, and you can from then on play any green Jedi only cards. To integrate this card into your deck, you must first remove the Rebel Hero Luke Skywalker card from the game. Both cards can't be played in the game at the same time for thematic reasons. So therefore you remove your Rebel Hero card, you insert this new Jedi card, Student of the Force, and you can have 2 Jedi players in the game at the same time. Okay, the final cards I'm going to tell you about are the Rebel Strike cards and the Imperial Strike cards. The Rebel Strike card, you would play this on another player and it would force them to discard 2 or 3 cards depending on what it says on the card. That other player must discard those cards unless of course it's an R2-D2 or a decoy, but they can block it by playing an Imperial Strike card. So if for instance a player played the Rebel Strike, discard 3 cards, that card is discarded by any Imperial Strike card, and the cards work the same way in reverse as well. If you want to play the Imperial Strike card against another player, that can be cancelled out by the Rebel Strike. It doesn't matter how many cards it says. If the Imperial Strike is played and it says the opponent must discard 3 cards, then the defending player plays a Rebel Strike which mentions 2 cards, it doesn't matter. That Rebel Strike will cancel out the Imperial Strike, and Imperial Strike will always cancel out a Rebel Strike. So that is how the Star Wars Stolen Plans card game works. You can download all the files you need from Board Game Geek. The game is completely free to print and play. Wait a minute, what's that?
We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.